Okay, thanks everyone for being here. My name is Stan Pinnell. I'm a senior account executive here at Revelwood, and I'm joined by my colleague Haley, who will be showing you today's overview demo of adaptive planning here in a few moments. Now, I just want to take a few minutes to give you an idea of what to expect today. First, some background on Revelwood. We are a platinum business partner of Workday, and what that means is that we are a part of an extremely select group of partners that help you evaluate and implement adaptive planning. We have over 25 plus years of experience and are made up of a diverse team of certified experienced consultants that bring decades of financial operations and system know-how. We've implemented over 150 adaptive customers over the past several years, and this continues to grow. Not only that, but we also help existing adaptive customers with model enhancements, integrations, support services, and one-on-one training. I'm aware that some of you may be here because you have an active initiative to get into a cloud FP&A solution, and some of you may just be here to learn or you're curious. Either way, we greatly appreciate you taking 15 minutes with us in the next few days just to have a quick chat and see what your current challenges are. If you have any feedback and whether there are resources that we can follow up with. An important thing to know is that the demo today is meant to just really give you a glimpse into what adaptive planning can do. We should be finished in 45 minutes. During that time, everyone is on mute. But if you have a question, there is a Q&A button at the bottom. Please enter your questions there, and we will try to get to them. If not, we will make sure to get back to you via email. I wanted to take a moment to share a handful of logos we have personally worked with at Revelwood to help implement and ensure a successful onboarding experience of Workday Adaptive Planning. I only have a few slides before we get started with the demo. Adaptive planning is a place where you can do your modeling, reporting, and analytics all in one place. So everything that you need is in one solution, and it will act as your central source of truth, if you will. So typically we're talking with finance teams, and of course, we're pulling in the general ledger data, but Adaptive can connect really to any data source that you need it to, because at the end of the day, data is data, and you'll be able to bring all that data together into one place to model and report on with confidence. And this slide gives you an idea of some of the areas of the business that you can model and plan using Adaptive, as it is not limited to the FP&A core area. You can model out really any operational area of the business that you want with Adaptive. So I'm sure you were thinking, that is really awesome stuff, Stan, but what separates Adaptive from the rest of the pack? Great question, everyone. Now, Adaptive runs on Elastic Hypercube technology, which is a patented Workday technology, and this is a key competitive differentiator. I'm not going to talk about the technical specifics because it isn't important, but the reason it is key is because it makes the solution scalable and able to have an unlimited number of dimensions and unlimited number of versions, scenarios, etc. And when your system needs more processing power, the system is intelligent and expands to give you more power. But what's equally important is that you have this power without losing ease of use and maintainability. As you will see in the demo today, everything is extremely intuitive with drag and drop functionality so that the end users can own the system without assistance from IT. And that's why Adaptive has almost 6,000 customers globally across all industries. This is way more than any of our competitors in the FP&A solution space. Did you know that Adaptive has a 95% gross retention rate? This speaks to the value of what these customers are getting out of Adaptive across all different types of industries, as you can see here. And this is growing rapidly. Our commitment to innovation and customer success is recognized by the industry. It's a product that gets the highest user ratings and delivers business agility in times of change, and you can expect the software to be easy to use, implement, and maintain as your business scales. Being ranked number one, ease of use, customer experience, satisfaction, usability, and best ROI, this should make you very excited to see Haley's demo now.
Alrighty, thanks, Stan. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining. My name's Haley Elliott. Like Stan mentioned at the beginning, I'm our Senior Pre-Sales Solutions Consultant for Workday Adaptive Planning here at Revelwood. I've been working with Adaptive for 3 years now and actually spent the first half of that as an implementer. So I delivered Adaptive for basically every industry you can think of: SaaS, manufacturing, real estate, across all of those different use cases that Stan talked about. So please feel free to pop questions in the Q&A chat. But for now, what you're seeing on the screen is my game plan for today. We're going to take a basic overview of the entire Adaptive platform. And then to Stan's point, if you want to look at some more industry specific models and reports and that kind of thing, happy to do a deep dive separately. But we are going to start off with just basics. So levels, versions, integration, kind of how are we getting data into the system? How are we navigating? We'll move into active dashboards and how we actually use those as part of the planning and budgeting process. We'll move into the financial statements, where I will focus on just the P&L today, but do know we typically build out a full 3 financial statement model with your cash flow and balance sheet forecasts and actuals as well. From there, we'll take a look at workforce planning, and then we'll finish up on 2 other types of reporting and visualization in Adaptive, both in browsers, so for that ad hoc budget versus actuals, and Office Connect, which is our plugin to Microsoft Office 365 that'll really let you automate the board presentations and executive decks that you're probably spending a lot of time on today. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and take us into Adaptive. So this is my home screen when I come into Adaptive. I say my home screen because this can be customized on an end user by end user basis. So what I mean by that is, as a CFO or exec, I might just want to come in and have a quick snapshot of company metrics on a dashboard like I see here. And we'll talk about some of these dials in a few moments. But one of your budget owners might want to come in and see a report, maybe budget versus actuals, to see how they're tracking against their budget. Or you might have a working screen set for someone who just needs to come in and key in a couple of numbers every now and then. So super flexible to make sure that people are getting to the data that they need to as fast as possible. One thing to note before I dive in is that I am in an admin account today. So a lot of the options we're going to see, you can restrict people from being able to navigate into certain areas or certain types of data as you would like to. So with that, let's go ahead and talk about basics. You're going to see 2 things on just about every screen in Adaptive, and that's going to be your levels and your versions. Levels are your organizational structure. So typically departments, divisions, entities, that kind of thing. But you may choose to have really whatever entity structure you'd like in here. Typically how this works is you will assign end users to a department or group of departments that they're responsible for budgeting for. And then every single dashboard, report, and working screen is going to be automatically filtered to their level access when they come in. It's the only level that they'll actually see in this dropdown. And so that's going to be important for 2 reasons. The first is so you can just restrict data access for things like personnel. You don't want everyone to see every data point. Part 2 to that is just maintenance. So if you're currently in Excel, you probably have 20, 30 different versions of the same exact template for each department. Here, you create the template once, and then you can go ahead and continue filtering that one template through the level structure. So that's going to be the level structure. very flexible as well. I had a company go public during implementation and they decided to completely restructure. So it's really easy to just change your structure as your business does change. The other item I mentioned was versions. So you get an unlimited number of versions in Adaptive. This is going to be for your different iterations of your budget, your rolling forecasts, think your 3+9s, that kind of thing. That's all going to be housed right here. You can have as many as you want, load in as much data as you'd like to. It's not going to impact your subscription. We have some clients with several terabytes of data in here, and you'll be on the same exact platform. So no concerns about scalability there. You'll notice a couple of these have a lock icon in the bottom as well. That just means it is a locked budget or a locked version, so that individuals can't go in and make changes to the data in those versions, but they are able to copy them over into a reforecast, go in and look at the data or pull it into reports. So just a nice way to make sure you always have that base approved budget to refer back to. That's going to be levels and versions. The two other things I'll just quickly talk about are how we're going to get a lot of your actual data into the system and support. And then we'll talk more about the modeling and visualization. So your entire planning, reporting, and analytics process is in one pane here in Adaptive. So you shouldn't have to navigate to any other platform to be able to create your process or your plan. And one way that we kind of make that happen is our native integration platform. So we don't use any third-party tools to connect to data sources. That just means whether you have an on-premise system, a cloud-based source system, whether it's an ERP, a CRM, an EHR, really whatever data type you want to bring into Adaptive, we have an integration for it. So we have pre-built connectors for a handful of systems. We can do APIs, JDBCs, so on and so forth. So again, data agnostic, and we're not restricted to just bringing in financial data. We have some manufacturers who will bring in how many runs their machines are doing per day. Professional services organizations will kind of start bringing in the number of hours different consultants are working on different projects, so on and so forth. So this is really a place where you can start to merge data sources together. And what we'll do is actually set up tasks to automatically load that data into the system for you. So this can be on a nightly basis, every hour, every 15 minutes. It's pretty quick integration. It's not like some other platforms where you have to wait several hours for your data to refresh. It's probably going to take a minute or two. And you always have the option to go into those tasks and just run them ad hoc. It's a click of a run button and you can update all your actuals pretty quickly. So meant to be owned by finance. It's not a super technical integration, anything like that. So it's pretty IT light. The other option for getting just your base data into the system is a manual import down here. And this is for things that you don't need to load quite as frequently. So think your personnel roster that you update like once a month, where you just tell Adaptive what sheet you're trying to load into, what version, and it will go ahead and generate a template for you to use. So copy paste your data into it, import, and you're good to go. But those are kind of two different options for, like I said, getting your base data into the system. I'll show you kind of manually keying in data as we go along as well. But the last thing I'll say before we hop into the visuals is just you do get a lot of support with this platform. You get 24/7, 365 support from Workday with your subscription. So you have a problem, you can call them up. They have SLAs of 4 hours right now, 4 hours or less. So it's very quick response time. And then you also have the option always to just click on a question mark and Adaptive will guess what you need help with and trying to import data. So it'll bring up a bunch of different options for different articles on how to complete the task. So lots of support. With that, let's go ahead and talk about dashboards and what we're seeing on the screen here, and that'll take us into modeling. So dashboards in Adaptive are called active dashboards for a couple of reasons. The first is that I can click on any dial here and have two options to see what makes that data up. So the first option is just to open up a cell explorer. That's going to give me a bunch of information around the levels or departments that are contributing to this number, any dimensions associated with what I drilled down on. But the two most important pieces here are going to be on this side where I have an audit trail on every piece of data in the system. So I can always click into it and see who's been making changes to that data, when they've made the changes, and what the changes were. So a nice way to introduce accountability and maybe help you decentralize some while still monitoring the changes that are being made. And then you can also drill all the way back into the planning model that's generating that number. So we'll look at this model in a little bit, just a simple product revenue model with my actuals. But that just proves out your visuals and models are on the same dashboard. So it makes it super easy to always say, let me make a change. Maybe if I wanted to change how many units we were selling, I can get back to the model that generated this number pretty quickly. The other option here was dimensional drill down. So I can always say, hey, I actually want to look at this by the different products we're selling. What customers are we selling to? So whatever level of granularity you'd like to go down to with your drill down, we can incorporate. And those drill down paths are automatically created as you add more and more dimensions onto a model in the future. So if a year from now, I want to add in region or something like that to my revenue model, as soon as I do that, it's going to appear in this list for drill down. So nice way to not have to remember to go update all of your dashboards and reports manually every time you want to make a model a little more granular. The other reason these are called active is that you can come into any of these tabs and actually put a planning model directly on the dashboard. So what this is going to be useful for is any sort of scenario analysis that you want to do. So let's say I'm managing sales north in this case. I see some unit numbers, product revenue, that kind of thing. And I just want to come down and say, what happens or what would happen if we actually sold 15% more units than I expected? So I can save that change. And what you're going to see up here is a little ... above each of these dials. And that's just showing that as soon as I made that change in my model, all of my visuals immediately refresh. So there's not a lag time. You don't have to manually run some long batch process. You just make the change and you can be confident your reports and visuals are up to date. That change I made will also roll all the way up through the level structure. So that little sales north change just aggregated to the US, operations A, and total company. So it also takes out the manual process of data consolidation or data aggregation. And we saw that change happen pretty quickly. So you can create snapshot schedules to have these immediately sent out to anyone you'd like. So just have a collated PDF pop up in your CFO's inbox. And then lastly, in terms of building these out, if I come in to edit one of these dashboards, so I'll click and drag. So you have a bunch of charts over on the side, and I can say, cool, I want to go ahead and build out a column graph. All it's going to do is just ask you what count you want to pull. And what I like to call out here is, yes, you have all of your GL account data, but you also have every other data point you have loaded into the system. So workforce data, services data, my CRM data, if you're on Salesforce, HubSpot, something like that. Inventory, if you are on the manufacturing side. So it's not just your financial data. So that's going to be dashboards in a nutshell. I'll go ahead and take us into financial statements and a couple other examples of models real quick. So sheets are going to be all of our working screens. So things that you are commonly entering in data, our calculations are running, that kind of thing. And assumptions are going to be our global drivers for things like average sales prices, working capital assumptions, workforce assumptions, any global drivers you want to be able to centralize and manage in one location. But for now, we're going to work on the P&L sheet. So Couple of things you'll notice here are green numbers and black numbers. Green numbers are actuals coming from your source ERP through that automated integration. Black numbers are budget data. So your budget is being actively created in Adaptive. You're either keying in information, we have calculations driving these, or you have a supporting schedule. So we'll look at some supporting schedules, which are just other more detailed sheets with like vendor contracts and stuff like that. But in terms of calculations, so everything on the screen that has a blue caret in the bottom just means it's a calculated field. Calculations in Adaptive, which you can see up here, are pretty straightforward. They're pretty similar to Excel syntax. The main difference is that instead of using cell references, so C2 times B 40,000, I'm actually using account names. So this is nice because I can actually tell what's happening in this formula. I'm taking my telephone per head assumption, so that reimbursement, and multiplying it by the number of FTEs in every department. So nice way to just be able to look at a formula and figure out what's actually happening in it. And of course, if you want to do something more complex, your if statements and all that, there's a nice little point and click formula assistant that'll help you write that type of formula. Although again, pretty similar to how you would write it in Excel. And speaking of Excel, we keep a lot of the same shortcuts for you as well to make this a little bit easier to navigate for anyone who's used to the Excel interface. The last thing I'll call out here before we actually move into some more of those supporting schedules is some built-in financial intelligence that we have in here. So for any line item, whether it's on an operating expense line item or you're planning for the number of units you're going to sell, the number of patients that are coming in per day, if you just know what your fiscal year target is or your quarter target, you can come in, key that in. So I'll say 15K for new hire training. We're going to hire a little bit less. I will have the option to break this back in a couple of different ways. These are all native out of the box functionalities. And I can say, hey, break this back proportionally using prior year values. And you will see that just updated and went ahead and spread that number seasonally for me. So pretty easy to do. And I'll just do that one more time so everybody can see proportionally. Okay, there you go. So it happens pretty quickly. This is just highlighting that Adaptive will track seasonality for you in any line item. So it actually looks at this previous year's actuals and broke that back in a more accurate way than just peanut butter spreading that 15,000. You can also leave comments. Those are what those little red carets are. So if you do have individuals in here entering in their budgets, you can come in, add notes, and just go ahead and have them explain any data that they're keying in, and those will aggregate at the bottom of any report that you pull. So from here, you are able to drill into some of those supporting schedules that I mentioned. So if I'm looking at salary and wages, for example, and I want to know where this May number is coming from for my department, I can explore cell. And this will let me get from my financial statement to the underlying schedule that's generating that number. Before I do click into workforce planning, one thing I want to just emphasize for everybody is we do have a lot of security control around personnel detail. So if someone does not have salary detail permission, they will not see the bottom half of the cell explorer. So they will not be able to see individual salary information. But I'm going to go ahead and follow this through to one example of a workforce planning sheet. So it's going to be an individual-based planning model. This is called a modeled sheet. Nomenclature isn't particularly important. That just means it is a sheet with a bunch of columns. You can drag any columns you want on here. So we use this for things like purchase orders, prepaids, your CRM data, those contracts. I'm using it for a workforce planning sheet here. So they are super flexible and you choose what intersections are on them. But in terms of what's happening here, we have a few drop downs. These are all referring to state-specific assumptions. So again, we have some personnel assumptions around 401k matches, state-specific taxes, my FICA, FUTA, SUI taxes, anything along those lines that I just want to manage in one place and have Adaptive kind of pull the appropriate rates depending on where these people are located. You'll also notice I have 2 lines for William, and I'm allocating him across 2 different departments here, 60-40 split. You could allocate them across programs, really any dimension that you'd like. And this allocation does not have to be a percentage. It could be based on time cards that we bring in, lots of flexibility with how we set these sheets up. All of the calculations here are happening in the back end. So if we want to see Melanie's details, I can right click on her and go ahead and scroll over. All of these calculations are also customizable. These are just some common ones that we see, but we'll figure out what's most relevant for you. But the one I do like to call out is this tax line right here, or both of them really, where Adaptive knows what the maxes for these taxes are. And it knows, cool, Melanie's hit her maximum in May. Go ahead and stop calculating that tax until the next fiscal year. So built-in financial intelligence as well. You don't have to tell it to do that. It just automatically does that. And nice way to get a little more granular with your planning. Other things I'll kind of mention on here is once you've imported your base data like this from your HR system, you are able to start playing around with it. So let's say, what happens if I hire a new account executive? I could copy that row. I could create a few new rows, copy and paste from Excel. Lots of different ways to start actively budgeting off of the base of data that you're bringing into the system. And all of this, since it's directly linked to that P&L line item, as soon as I make changes here, it'll go ahead and roll through to the income statement. So you also don't have to manually relink things or run a process there. It's all about just making your changes and saving. Okay. Like I mentioned, just one example of personnel planning. If you have a large part-time or temporary workforce as well, we do have position planning available as well, where we'll just have titles and the number of FTEs in that title and a couple of average hours and salary, pay rates and that kind of thing. So you can plan either way or both. From here, though, I am going to go ahead and pop into a couple of other types of reports that we have. So the first is going to be this in-browser ad hoc reporting. So I'll go ahead and open up a couple of these. And we're going to cover functionality, and then I'll talk more on how these are built and a couple different examples. So footnotes are going to be those little red carrots from the P&L that are all aggregating here since I'm pulling those accounts, so I don't have to go hunting for them. You'd also pop them in line on a column if you'd like to. You do have the option to drill down into any of these numbers as well. It's not a static report. So if you see a crazy variance like this, you can always say, hey, let me click into my actuals and drill down to the transactional level detail directly in Adaptive to figure out where that variance is coming from. So this is a very flexible view. We can add in vendors, invoice ID, link to the actual invoice so that you can get whatever detail you need to be able to do your budget versus actuals without having to go back into your ERP. So that's also going to be really nice for anyone who's a budget owner, but not necessarily a core finance person who actually understands the inner workings of an ERP. This is usually a little bit easier to digest in this form. Lastly, you can click on any account and pivot by a dimension in the system. So I have a bunch here. This is just highlighting. You can have a lot of dimensions. You don't have to have this many. The average is usually 10 to 20, but I have a couple of clients with 200. But if I wanted to see salary and wages by something like function, I have a brand new report with just 2 clicks. So seeing salary and wages by my different functions. I have the option to switch between a few different currencies. You can have as many currencies as you'd like, and Adaptive will handle all of that FX rate conversion for you. You can download these as Excel and PDF, although you do get up to 1,000 view-only users that you can give access to look at reports and dashboards in the system. And lastly, how these are built. It's all click and drag as well. So just like dashboards, you're going to have access to every element in Adaptive right over here. So if you want to drag additional accounts onto the report, you absolutely can. A lot of that conditional formatting as well is just drop downs. So no coding involved there either. So you can usually spin something like this up pretty quickly. One other report that I like to show when I go over web reports is something that, in my experience, the C-suite especially loves, being able to look at your income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow, last year's actuals, 2 versions of this year's budget, along with a few different financial metrics. So this is just highlighting, again, you're not stuck to just displaying GL account data. You can also start to do calculations, look at a couple of key ratios, anything along those lines that you'd like to look at. Okay. The last thing I will cover today is just going to be Office Connect. So this is our other type of reporting and visualization in Adaptive that plugs into Excel, PowerPoint, and Word. And it's going to take all your data in Adaptive, whether it's actuals or budget data, and make your reports live. So if I highlight linked cells, you'll see blue cells and green cells. Blue cells are linked directly to Adaptive. So even from this report in Excel, I can explore cell, and it's going to go ahead and take me back into Adaptive and let me figure out, again, where that data is coming from. So supporting sheets, audit trail, same level of detail. Green cells are going to be dynamic labels. So as I refresh this month over month, I will be able to have these labels automatically update. So let's say you have an existing board report. You do not have to kind of rip and replace it. This is all drag and drop. So you can just install Office Connect, pull up your existing report. You'll have all of Adaptive's elements available over here on the left. And you can just go ahead and expand and just click and drag the Adaptive accounts over onto your existing report to make it live. So all these cells are blue now. The ones that aren't are Excel formatting. So you still retain full Excel formatting if there are specific charts that the board or C-suite likes to see. And then from here, all you really need to do is just refresh the report. So I'm looking at March right now. If you come up to Workbook Properties, I can grab next month's report pretty quickly. Just switch it to April. Refresh. You're going to see all these lines at the bottom populate with data now. And I'm now looking at a trailing 6 from April 2023. My budget for that month, what were my actuals last year, and a couple of year-to-date metrics. So pretty fast updates so that you're no longer spending a couple of days trying to build those reports before the big board presentation. Your other option here, you can come in and go ahead and expand out these lines to get more detail. Adaptive will automatically add any new accounts that have been created directly to these reports for you. And lastly, we do have repeating reports. So think if you want to get this kind of report for different programs, different departments, different entities, you can come up into repeating reports. I'm going to break this down by level. In this case, I'm going to pick 3 countries. And at the bottom, you're going to see 3 new tabs where Adaptive is automatically splitting this data out for me for France, Canada, the United States, and I still have my total company. So again, Office Connect is actually one of our most popular features since it does take away a lot of the pains of actually having to manually do all of this before board presentation. Lets you focus a little bit more on actually analyzing this report so you have a stronger presentation for the board. But that's all I had for today. With that, I'll go ahead and pass it back to Stan to close us out.
Okay, so thank you, Haley. Hopefully everyone saw how powerful, flexible, and especially how easy Adaptive is to use with the simple drag and drop functionality. If you need more, we have plenty of resources we can make available to you, such as a one-on-one demonstration that speaks more to your needs. We can offer up return on investment sessions to quantify the value of this investment, hands-on workshops, and even get your hands on a trial too. Just let us know what makes sense for you when we connect in our follow-up meeting or reach out to me directly. We are happy to help you. We encourage you to learn more about Revelwood and our implementation approach by visiting our website at revelwood.com. While you are there, we also encourage you to visit our Knowledge Center, where we offer tips and tricks about all aspects of the planning process. Technical tips on the tool, planning tips about the budgeting process, and various tips on other business aspects of your FP&A model. Thanks for attending, and one of my colleagues will be reaching out for a 15-minute follow-up call. Hopefully you will take the time to share your feedback and let us know how else we can help. Have a great day, and thanks everyone for attending.